We are going to do simultaneous interpretation here so that you know.
We need to prepare the press.
No problem.
Goes, you can do
no problem. It's just because of the microphone that catches everything so that you are
exactly.
aware.
Then maybe
Uvaženi predstavnici.
Dear representatives of the media, the President of Montenegro, Milo Đukanović, and the President of the European Council, Michel, will make press statements. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and pleasure for me to greet today in Montenegro the President of the European Council, Mr. Michel, with the delegation that he brought with him. And he is visiting the region of the Western Balkans, actually. This is the second visit that he paid to our region in the very short period of time, which shows full dedication of European officials, highest European officials, and the European institutions to further Europeization of our region and to the achievement of foreseeable European prospects for each of Western Balkan countries. I would like to remind that only a couple of months ago, we had the visit of the President of the European Commission, and that in the meantime, I had official talks also with Mr. Michel in February in Brussels, which actually shows the continuity of an open and high-quality dialogue that is contributing to our joint achievement of common goals. This has been an opportunity to update the information that we shared in our last meeting. At that time, I announced that we would get new government in Montenegro, and I am very glad that this announcement has become truth. We got the new government, and we believe that it will be more dedicated than the last one to the European prospects of Montenegro, which we consider to be the key priority of our policy. And that was the condition for that government to get support. And if we are to judge according to the first couple of weeks that we are working together with the new government on, I would say that we are all trying to use our time in a responsible way and to achieve as much as possible in that field in the time that we have. This was also an opportunity for us to remind that Montenegro, through the activities in the last 2 years, has shown that it is a functional parliamentary democracy. I will remind you that many people had suspicions whether Montenegro would be able, after the long-term continuity of the former ruling coalition, would have the democratic capacity for peaceful transition of power. And we saw that Montenegro had that capacity. Only a couple of months or several months after the establishment of the new government, we replaced that government in the parliament through democratic initiative because the government proved to be incompetent and irresponsible. And instead of that government, we now have minority government, which has two priorities: to work on the deblocking of the negotiation process with the European Union and to work on reinforcing the trust of investors as key partners in our process to achieve the goals of economic development and development of our society. The second thing that Mr. Michel and I talked about was the situation in the region. I repeated something that is very well known political principle that the entire policy of Montenegro stands behind, and that is that stability of the Western Balkans is actually equal to the integration in the European Union. Unfortunately, we have seen some slowing down in the implementation of the agenda of the European Union in the Western Balkans, and unfortunately there was a space that was opened like that and created like that, and it was used by other countries who acted from anti-European platforms. And it is clear today that the consequences of that kind of activity and destruction are visible clearly in the Western Balkans. And unfortunately, we got even more dramatic warning of all of this, and that is the aggression of this particular third party, Russia, against Ukraine, which is not only aggression against Ukraine, but also against European security and European system of values. That's why I think that the warning from Ukraine is in a way welcome. I mean, aggression can never be welcome, but when it comes to the attitude of European Union towards the Western Balkans and the enlargement policy, I would say that this aggression against Ukraine has indicated to the need to have new dynamics in the relations between European Union and the Western Balkans. And now it's up to us to understand this momentum in the proper way. So the most important thing is that we reactivate our reform potential in the Western Balkans and to focus on eliminating the deficiencies and lacks that prevent us from being a part of modern European society. We think that Montenegro has a particular opportunity and a particular task in that. First of all, because it is the most advanced country in the process of negotiation with the European Union. And on top of that, it is a small and flexible system which can react very quickly when the opportunities are created, as it is now. So we are now to implement the following. We need to finish the priorities in the relations with the European Union. That is the improvement of the rule of law, higher efficiency and independence of judiciary, and we understand this as a realistic task. And we are absolutely willing to invest maximum political will on that task and maximum political capacities to offer good arguments to our European partners so that they can advocate acceleration of the process of accession of Montenegro into the European Union, and to send a good signal in that way that enlargement policy of the European Union is vivid and that all the countries of the Western Balkans do have a realistic and foreseeable European perspective. So it's important that we understand, and Mr. Charles Michel and I share this opinion today in the meeting, membership of the Western Balkan countries in the European Union is a geopolitical investment into European peace and stability. That is not only in the interest of the Western Balkans, that is in the interest of the European Union, and we have to contribute to achievement of that goal together. I look forward to new opportunity to continue our dialogue in the meeting that will happen very soon, that will be organized between the European Council and the countries of the Western Balkans, and that will be an opportunity definitely to continue our dialogue and discuss very subtle issues related to European future of our region. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Hvala, gospodine Michel.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great pleasure for me to have this occasion to be here today in your country. It's a pleasure to meet you again. This is indeed an important moment for the future of the European continent. And you have mentioned it. Russia has decided to launch a brutal war, a brutal aggression against the people of Ukraine. And right from the start, the EU has acted with unity to support Ukraine and to sanction Russia. With the sixth package of sanctions that we've agreed on a few days ago, we are continuing to pile pressure on the Russian economy to cut the oxygen from the Russian war machine. And I would like to thank you, dear President, you and your government and your country for your full alignment with EU sanctions on Russia. We had the occasion to discuss the impact of Russia's war on Montenegro, on the rising price of energy, food, raw materials. Montenegro has also shown great hospitality, hosting a large number of Ukrainian refugees, and the EU is determined to maintain and to increase our support to you, to your government and to your people when you are addressing those extremely difficult challenges. We had the occasion to discuss the EU-Montenegro relationship. And this is right, you mentioned it, the Western Balkans are a strategic priority for the EU more than ever. And more than ever, we must be fully committed to the European perspective of the partners. Montenegro has been a consistent partner for the EU over many years. In fact, for more than a decade, Montenegro has 100% record of aligning with our common foreign and security policy, and this shows your strong commitment to becoming a member of the EU. And with your new government, we discussed a few months ago when we were together in Brussels, with your new government which is in place, now is the time to speed up your integration with the EU by moving ahead with reforms and by working constructively with all political actors and institutions in Montenegro to advance the EU accession process. The next step is to fulfill the interim benchmarks on rule of law, and this will re-energize the accession process and allow Montenegro to move forward for the benefit of all the people of Montenegro. Next week, I will have the pleasure to organize a meeting of the 27 EU leaders with the Western Balkan leaders in Brussels. And this meeting, I hope, will be an opportunity to show our unity of purpose and to boost our cooperation. We stand by your country and the region, providing both short and long-term support. A good example is our economic and investment plan for the Western Balkans. Up to 30 billion euros, it provides, and it will provide, funding to help and to support the region close the development gap with the EU and to deal with today's geostrategic challenges. We have also had the occasion to discuss the proposal of a European political community. We had the occasion to make very clear that the goal is not to replace the EU accession process. On the contrary, I am personally convinced that an immediate political integration with this possibility to have meetings on a regular basis at the level of the leaders will help us collectively to improve the mutual political understanding and probably will help us to make progress in the field of the EU integration and the EU accession. It will boost the enlargement process. This is my personal opinion and conviction. Finally, I would like to thank you again. We had today very valuable exchange of views. It's always useful to listen to each other, to understand better what are the different priorities, concerns, and we are determined to cooperate, to coordinate, to work closely together in order to make sure that we can prepare our common EU future.
Zvanične posjete imaju svoju
Official visits have very precise agenda. We have a very brief time for questions. Only one is allowed. Gradska TV. Danica Janković, City TV. A question for Mr. Michel. How realistic it is that Montenegro will be the next new member of the European Union and in that a good example to the countries of the European Union?
I think indeed that a lot of progress are made by Montenegro. I am very confident that additional progress will be made in the following weeks, and it will be a good step in the right direction. It is also an example for all the countries of the Western Balkans, because, of course, this own merit-based approach, but it's very important to show that if there is a political will, if there are reforms that are implemented, there are positive steps that are made, and this could be an interesting signal for the relationship between the EU on the one hand and the Western Balkans on the other hand.
Javila se televizija Vijesti.
And TV Vijesti. Ljubica Milićević from TV Vijesti. For President Michel, the question. Since so far, in relation to the Open Balkans, we heard the messages that are interpreted in different way in the domestic public. Can you tell us precisely whether Brussels has any kind of reserves towards the initiative of the Open Balkans or fully supports it? And for President Đukanović, if it is a clear opinion of the West that Open Balkans is a good initiative for the region, will DPS support that initiative? And another question, what did you say to the workers of steel plant, and do you feel responsibility for 3 unsuccessful privatization in steel plant and the metal industry during the time of DPS rule? Thank you.
The EU will always support the initiatives that encourage the regional cooperation and coordination among the countries of the Western Balkans. But of course, it will be the decision, and it is a decision that needs to be taken by the different governments. We support an inclusive process, which seems is very important to make sure, and it's what I understand, that this process is open to all the countries of the region. And we are very operational, because probably you know that a few months ago, we took a very important decision within the EU when we decided to mobilize this historic 30 billion euros in order to encourage the investments in the region, in the infrastructure, to address the climate change challenges, in order to address the digital transformation, for instance. And I'm personally convinced that we need to entrench all the efforts in order to support the economic development and the social cohesion. And I'm personally convinced that more economic cooperation in the region is a positive step. But of course, we will respect the decisions that need to be taken by the authorities in the different countries. You know that a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, I had the occasion to pay a visit to 3 other countries which are members of the Western Balkans. We discussed also with them this initiative, and I understand that this is an inclusive process which is important for the EU.
Montenegro is the country that should render its decisions about regional and other initiatives on the basis of a valid and competent assessment of what our interests are. And Montenegro should render those decisions in its own institutions, and that's why I'm not concerned at all when it comes to the differences within our political entities about this initiative or any other initiative. Differences are natural, and they show development of political culture in our region, in our country. And as I said, the decision should be made on the analysis of our interests. We hear what our Western partners say, and we should just read carefully what they say. I read the latest opinion of the European Union and what the latest opinion of the United States is. They logically support regional cooperation, just like we do, with one comment that it has to be based on European values. And their message is, of course, also that it's very important that we have cooperation within the initiatives that we already defined in the summit of the Berlin process in Sofia. The region of the idea of economic market was established. So until we use full capacity of that initiative, it is absolutely pointless, I think, to talk about new initiatives that would be a poor substitution of what is already happening within the auspices, under the auspices of the European Union. That's why I think we should first of all use the capacity of the existing initiatives with the open mind for all other initiatives that can contribute to a new quality. I think that this issue has become too politicized in domestic and international public, and I think that it does not deserve at all the attention that is now given to it. As for the second question, we know already that whatever I say to you here, I have to be responsible in the perception of a part of the public for everything that is wrong here. So, but we will discuss that on some other occasion. Let us focus now on the European Union integration and Western Balkan and European Union relations. Pobjeda, another question. Željka Zvicer. I have a question both for Mr. Đukanović and for Mr. Michel, and it is related to regional initiative Open Balkans. You said that you hear the messages coming from our Western partners. However, recently, the official Moscow supported this regional initiative. Cancelling of the visit of Sergei Lavrov to Serbia was interpreted by Sergei Lavrov as an attempt to prevent Russia from providing support to the Open Balkans initiative. How do you interpret this? Do you see this as a potential danger that Russia, through this initiative and thanks to the good relations with one of the initiators, which is Serbia, is spreading influence on other countries of the Western Balkans and spreading disinformation? You could hear my opinion several times that the initiative of the Western Balkans comes from Eurosceptics, those people who at certain point actually had suspicions in that the prospects for the countries of European Union in the Western Balkans is realistic. I think that we should not be skeptical, and that's what our conversation and meeting today and the messages that Mr. Charles Michel gave us today convinced me into. He comes from the most important entity or institution of the European Union, and that's why I believe that our future in Europe is realistic and that it is now additionally strengthened because of something that we could obviously see through Russian aggression against Ukraine as an attack against European system of values and system of security, and that we should focus all our energy to create preconditions to use that opportunity. When it comes to Russian influence, I don't think we should be proving this. Russia is destructive against Europe, and Russia is trying to encourage and strengthen in any possible way all the political forces who in their basis have Euroscepticism or destruction against European Union. When I talk about Russia, I don't talk about their Euroscepticism. I talk about their open, destructive platform of anti-European activities against European system of value and against European security. So it is unfortunately legitimate that everyone acts from their geopolitical interest in the way in which they consider that to be the most productive. I think it is not productive either for Europe or for Russia. I believe that the future, if not our foreseeable future, but then further future, will bring higher quality partnership between Russia and Europe, given the fact that we can't avoid geography, we can't avoid it being a neighbor to Russia. But we have to neutralize the receptors for Russian destructions, and there are such receptors in European Union and in the Western Balkans. Unfortunately, those receptors are the problem. I think we should neutralize them and create conditions for a constructive cooperation on the relation between European Union and the Western Balkans that will make the prospect of membership for all countries of the Western Balkans completely clear and foreseeable. Just one more question.
Also, I would like to react on this on that question, because the European Union is based on 3 pillars: peace, prosperity, and fundamental values. And we all can see that the Russian authorities are making another choice. They've decided to launch a brutal war against Ukraine. This has severe consequences at the economic and at the social level, and we can see that their interest for the human dignity is certainly not at the same level than what we have at the EU level.
Još jedno pitanje.
Another question, please. Hello. I have 2 questions. One to Mr. Michel and one for the President. First for Mr. Michel. We saw that at the beginning of May, Mr. Macron gave a statement on the vision of the Western Balkans outside the EU. What are your comments on that? Are these ideas compatible with the Montenegro entering in the EU? And for Mr. Đukanović, a question outside the topic of this conference, and it's about local elections in Podgorica and 13 municipalities, whether they will be held on the 23rd of October, because there are some unofficial initiatives that they may be postponed. What is the President's position?
Extremely clear. I'm convinced, and I think that many European Union leaders are convinced that time is now, and we must accelerate, we must speed up the process of integration. And it's not by coincidence that I took the decision a few weeks ago to put the topic on the agenda by the end of June, and that I took the decision to invite the Western Balkan leaders. It shows our political commitment, and we would like to have a sincere exchange of views with our friends from the Western Balkans in order to identify how we will work together in the following weeks and months in order to make concrete and tangible progress. And it means that each of us, we have our homework, and certainly in the Western Balkans it's very important to maintain all the efforts to make progress in the field of rule of law, reforms, fight against corruption, independence of justice, etc. Point 1, we discussed the topic, and I'm optimistic because I understand there is a strong political will to make progress in the country in that field. Point 1. Point 2, on the EU side, it's also very important to send a clear and sincere message that we want to accelerate the process. And I count on all of us by the end of June to express a united, clear political message on that topic.
You know that I changed the decision on the timing of the local elections on the basis of the law that was voted twice, the law on amendment to the law on local self-government, fully aware that it is not a perfect solution based on the Constitution. But I decided to respect what is a clear parliamentary majority at that moment. So today we have the new decision and we have the elections scheduled in line with the provisions of the law. And the provisions of the law says that by the end of October they have to take place. And I scheduled them for 23rd of October, and I don't see absolutely any reason that this date can be changed. As for me, Local elections in Montenegro will take place on the 23rd of October. Thank you, everyone. The press conference is finished.